Well, hello, 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 and I guess a happy Valentine's Day for some, just another day for others. Hope you're all having a good day regardless. This here is what I spend my watching this fantastic. I'm on episode 108. And I'm still only a little more than halfway through all the episodes of this Turkish soap opera, which is actually a historical documentary because I started to get curious and say, well, how much of this is fantasy and how much is real? Because it's like an epic fantasy. I mean, love affairs, Romeo and Juliet of, the Sultan's princess being in love with they call him Pasha, which is similar to an English nobleman, I guess. I think that's probably, you could be translated as Lord Kemaladin Pasha, Kemaladin Pasha. Or he's the son of a Pasha. Okay, his father is like the general of the army. And his father has, well, the storyline that's it's like a double Romeo and the acting and everything is amazing. And around it, they've got all the real history of the establishment of Zionism through, if you do your history, you're going to come across the name Theodor Herzl, Herzl. He wrote the book in the late 1890s and 19 teens that basically established what became Israel. And the last sultan, or I guess he might be second to the last, but anyway, the Ottoman Empire was huge. It was a superpower. If you think of all the different Arab countries today, if they were really united under a caliphate, the caliphate, of course, that's the Islamic, the best way to compare it is compare it to the Vatican back when the Pope was powerful. I mean, the Pope is a cartoon character in the media today. I'm Catholic. I'm Roman Catholic, Latin Rite. But the Pope does not have the kind of power. The media tries to keep the fantasy going because they need that fantasy in order to keep people hating each other. And even if the Pope is the spiritual head of the church, spiritual is not political. Just like today, Islam does not have a caliphate, the caliphate being the head of all of the Islamic people as well as their religion. They started to have, now I'm beginning to understand something I did not really understand was what was the big deal over, I forget his title, Khomeini. Imam Khomeini, or he had another title, but he was basically taking the place of this guy, this one's uncle. She's a princess of the extended family, Abdul Hamid. Okay, so I started researching the documentary because there's all kinds of fantasy going on with these love affairs and everything. But apparently the political side, where they're talking about the establishment of the oil and the talks going on between Abdul Hamid and European leaders and all that, apparently that's pretty accurate. So it's a great way to get an education, because let me play a little bit of this for journalistic use, fair use, and you'll see what I mean. This lady in red, her name is Hatise. Hatise is the daughter, she's the niece of the Sultan Abdul Hamid. The storyline goes like this. The general's son, his name is Kemaladin. Kemaladin saw Hatise walking in the garden outside the palace, because he has an office in the palace because he works for the Sultan. She was carrying a dress folded over her arm. She was on her way to give it to her cousin. Now, her cousin is the actual daughter of the Sultan, the actual princess. And her cousin was madly in love with Kamaladin. I mean, she had seen him and just like, whoa, head over. And all the characterization in this series is so great. What's the princess's name? Naime. Naime is the daughter of the Sultan. She's a very sweet girl, absolutely clueless. She's been sheltered all her life. And the writers of the story allowed you to see why this apparently intelligent young woman is totally clueless about what's going on in life, because they have a little niece, another daughter of the Sultan, who's a little girl about 6 or 7 years old, and has been living with her because the Sultan has a number of wives, right? So this little girl has been living with her mother somewhere else, and then she's brought into the palace to be with her sisters, her half sisters, and she is so sheltered and spoiled, and nobody ever really explains anything to her. And so you can see by watching how they treat the little girl, who's now the darling of the harem, why the Sultan's adult daughter could reach adulthood and not be able to see what's going on among the adults around her. Just totally sheltered from reality. So Naime has seen Kamaladin walking and fallen head over heels in love with him. And the cousin, in the meantime, is a bit of a rebel. This is the woman in red. Her name is Hatise. Okay. Hatise's aunt is always scheming against the Sultan's wife because she's the Sultan's sister. Okay. So she and her husband are always in schemes, and it's funny because it's a real plot within a plot within a plot. And Hatise saw Kamaladin and also fell madly in love with him. But Hatise is a bit of a wild girl. She's been brought to the palace along with her sister because her father is the Sultan's brother, who is under house arrest for trying to become the Sultan himself. So there's all this, Game of Thrones stuff going on. So Hatise notices Kamaladin, but she's not going to show her hand. She's a street girl in a way. Royalty, but certainly not clueless. So she's walking along, and Kamaladin, in the meantime, he has fallen in love with her because on one of her little rebel things was she couldn't stand being closed doors in the palace harem. So she found ways to get out and go shopping, right? She went off to this dressmaker's shop, and she started finding ways to sneak out and have clothing made and, rich girl rebel stuff. So on one of these little outings, she bumps into, no, I'm mixing her up with somebody else. Anyway, I'm confused because there are so many princesses and subplots. But at some point, Hatise was out doing something she shouldn't have been doing, and Kamaladin saw her and fell head over heels in love with her, not knowing who she was. But at the same time, this other thing's going on when Naime, the Sultan's daughter, Grandma Gertrude, hi. The Sultan's daughter is madly in love with him. So he's walking in the garden. He sees, no, he did not fall in love with Hatise. That's the thing. But he's being polite to Hatise because, no, how can I say it? I've messed it up. There are so many lines to this. Let me just pull this up. Yeah. Okay, we got some problems here. Hide user. All right. Hide user. Okay. All right. Please ignore the trolls. They're obviously they got nothing better to do. Um, let me start over. Cameladen is in love with Hattusay, who is the niece of the Sultan. In the meantime, the daughter of the Sultan is in love with Cameladen. I'm not going to try to say how it all happened because I've got it confused a little bit. But this is how it stands. So Cameladen is walking in the garden and he's being polite to Hattusay, and he falls in love with her. And she falls in love with him, the two of them. So it's mutual between those two. In the meantime, the Sultan's daughter is always there and she outranks Hattusay. So Hattusay is always playing games around the daughter. And so there's this scene where Hattusay is walking along and she has this dress draped over her arm. And Cameladen is trying to get a message to Hattusay that he's in love with her. So he slips a note. He greets her and he's just being very polite and official. And he's wearing his Sultanic soldier uniform. Because this is the 1800s. It's all very, fancy uniforms and all that. And so he slips his passionate love letter into the folds of the dress she's holding, thinking it's going to reach her. So they talk, and she's careful not to show her feelings because, we're talking about Islamic society and the royal women of the harem and all that stuff. And so they go about their business, and the dress ends up, it's Naime's dress, the daughter's. So Hattusay was bringing her this dress. And the passionate love letter is in the folds of this dress. In the meantime, Naime has written passionate love letters to Cameladen, and he has not answered them because he cannot turn her down because she's a sultan's daughter, but he really doesn't have feelings for her. So, she's been in tears, and the other women in the harem are comforting her, and I'm sitting here crying with them. And then she gets this passionate letter, not knowing it was really addressed to Hattusay. And she thinks it's reciprocal. So her father finds out that this is the love of her life. Well, he happens to be the son of a favorite general. So the Sultan says, hey, let's get him hitched. And of course, the general is tickled pink. His son's going to marry the Sultan's daughter. Well, one thing leads to another. It ends up with Hattusay actually shooting Cameladen, trying to do a murder-suicide. She goes to his office and shoots him and tries to shoot herself. But he's still conscious, so he grabs the gun away from her and prevents her. And the soldiers that heard the shot and the shouts are trying to break the door down, the palace guards. Hello. Oh, let me show you. I'm talking about the Sultan's niece here, Hattusay. And this is like, I've been watching the soap opera, and the big wedding was today. So the Sultan arranges for his daughter and Cameladen to get married. And at the same time, knowing that Hattusay is always with her, his wife says, wouldn't it be wonderful to have a double wedding? Do you have somebody in mind for Hattusay? Because these people, this is the 1800s, they still have arranged marriages. So he picks out this kind of nondescript young guy who's a clerk in the palace. I forget his name. Vasily. And he says, oh, she can marry Vasily. And Vasily works in the same office with Cameladen. Well, the wedding has just gone through. Let me. This is the wedding night.
Sultanım. Aşkınızın meftunuyum sultanım. Yüzünüzü çevirmeyin benden. Bir nefes didar için 1000 can feda etsem ne ola? Nice demlerdir esiri iştiyakudur.
I know the words are coming out backwards on screen. I'm going by the English subtitles. Obviously, they're speaking Turkish. But you can see the music. It's beautifully done. No, Umberto, I'm from Texas. They're speaking Turkish. And this is the 100, episode 100 of Abdulhamid. If you can see the name up there. Abdulhamid was the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. And it's the story of the last years of the Ottoman Empire when Theodore Herzl is running around trying to get the Jewish state of Israel set up. And, yeah, Texas is a good place for exes. So, anyway, it's amazing because they got all this fantastic romance going on. I didn't even tell you the part where the Sultan's son, in the meantime, has fallen in love with one of the servant girls. And you know how, I mean, that's every society in the world has that issue going on. How did I find, well, you know what? It showed up. YouTube started asking people to fill out a thing that tells them what you want to see. So I hit historical drama. Because I've been watching a lot of, like, you know, King Arthur and the Knights Templar and all that. Well, all of a sudden, this series showed up in my feed, and it was on Al Jazeera. And then there's another, I've been watching it on a channel called Tabi. Tabi is all Middle Eastern, Turkish, and similar, mostly it's a Turkish company, I think. But it's all high romance soap operas that are really good. Very well. And I want to tell you something. It is so pleasant to watch actresses who have normal faces. I mean, look at this girl. She has a normal face. No Botox and poofy lips and, oh, the monsters we got coming out of Hollywood. All the women in this thing are just normal, natural beauties. Of course, they're all beautiful because it's a royal fantasy. Oh, how did I love the show. I'm addicted to it. And United States used to have good soap operas. My mother was hooked on 2 or 3 of them. You know, there was like about 2 hours in the afternoon where we left her alone in the living room with her stories, as she called them. Young and the Restless, As the World Turns. There was another one. I forget the other one. But Young and the Restless, she could never miss it, that. But actually, that was in the 60s and 70s. And then the whole Hollywood thing went down the tubes. All of the plot lines are very shallow. American actors are always doing propaganda. They're in character, and all of a sudden they got to give a speech. In fact, there was one reason. Well, anyway, Hollywood's been dead for 30 years. But in England, you have soap operas too, don't you? In fact, one of the things they hated about Mel Gibson's story of the Passion of Christ is he showed the real drama of going through what we know historically, whether you think Jesus was divine or not. There was a real guy with that name who really did go through what he went through, because there's Roman documentation and history of it. General Hospital, that's the other one I was trying to think of. Yeah, in India, I've noticed some of your stuff I've looked at. I haven't really watched a lot of it. Bollywood, that's what you call it, right? But anyway, this is my Valentine present to everyone, is just go look up Abdul Hamid. And the channel, if I can pull it up here. Tabbi. Tabi. They've got another one about the Crusades, about Barbarossa. Now that's a figure in history. Then they've got some modern ones. The Circle. I haven't watched any of these others. I did watch a little bit of Barbarossa. And the thing is, what's interesting is that, of course, we in the West, we see everything through the propaganda we're fed. Even though we have free speech, it's really weird how our society has learned how to control speech without looking like, so I say you start to notice after a while that our stories are very limited. And what I like about this one, okay, now the Sultan is a great hero. And he combines the figure of Pope and King, because the Caliphate is like the Islamic Vatican, right? And so you think, well, they're going to show, like, if this was one of the dramas, think about the dramas they have about the White House, right? They've always got to show this plot line of very predictable characters. They're very one-sided, not real. Well, the Sultan is a guy who's very faithful to his religion. He got into he got the position of Sultan after some kind of civil war with his brother. And apparently his brother was the Sultan and was getting too close to Europe, and somebody or other I've got one too. Somebody or other in the Sultanic realm didn't like his brother, and things happened, and he was suddenly put in office as a fairly young man, but a very religious man. And he's truly mystical. He's not religious like in the political sense, like Trump sometimes acts like he is, which we know he's not. Trump just likes to play games. But so Abdul Hamid really does the job of being the caliph. And he's very shrewd. And you see all of his maneuverings and manipulations, and you get to see the difference between Western Christian cultural politics, where you have bad guys and good guys got to win over bad guys. But all of the interplay between the Sultan and these other people in his palace and the foreign ambassadors and diplomats and everything are all much more nuanced. And the Sultan keeps trusting the wrong people. And it gets to the point where the soap opera thing kicks in. You're like, don't trust them, and you're cheering for this one and you're booing for that one. And they've got this guy, Mahmoud, who's a full-on narcissist, and he's one of the noblemen, and he's always scheming and conniving, but he's greedy, and at the same time he loves life. I mean, he eats food like bacon, which you're not supposed to have, but he just loves life. At the same time as he'll stab anyone in the back if he thinks he has a chance at power, because he wants. But what he doesn't really want power. He wants admiration, because. But now, if that were a Western story, he would be the bad guy, because he can't be trusted. He's a liar, a bullshitter. He's out for himself. And the Sultan would never be the weak man who keeps trusting the wrong people. He would have to be the good guy who's being unfairly fooled by nasty, evil people. But they showed that, no, these are all good people who have these weaknesses. The Sultan being that he's always trying to trust somebody. But he doesn't really. He's also very intelligent, and as soon as he notices that Mahmud is a liar, he just starts watching Mahmud and having people follow him, and then he keeps giving Mahmud things to do, and the other pashas, the other noblemen say, "Hey, why are you doing that? We know he's a bullshitter. Why do you trust him?" And the Sultan just kind of, Next thing you know, he's been using Mahmud as bait. He's been playing to all of Mahmud's little appetites and weaknesses to use them as bait. And it's a lot like the conspiracy culture of the YouTube conspiracy world. So it's really amazing. Anyway, I recommend it because it gives you something to think about. And I can't get the chat up here. Oh, here we are. Okay. Millionaire trust and gold mining. Would I like to ask a question? No, not really. Down with sore throat. Okay, I will suggest very carefully, because I know the algo's always watching. I would suggest that you go into YouTube search. Search for, his name, Dr. I can't think. It's a Pakistan. He's a Pakistani American doctor. I think the last name is Bean, Been. But put in black cumin. It's Nigella sativa. Black cumin is a spice, and they use it in remedies with honey in the Mideast, and I use it. What you do is you put you fill a jar with black cumin seed, which normally you would just sprinkle in your rice or whatever, but you fill a jar with it and then cover it with honey, and it makes a very good throat remedy. But okay, let me see. All right, we got weird people in here, but just keep it clean. Yeah. Nope, not making anyone any cookies. But in fact, you can hear my own throat is ready to go, so I've got to get going. But I hope you're all having a good time wherever you are, doing whatever you're doing. And it's nice to see 13 people in, mostly getting along with each other. And go enjoy that soap opera. It'll give you something to think about. As well as if you want to spend time with your sweetheart watching a good movie, do it with that. It's because it's very clean. That's another problem we have. We can't watch anything from Hollywood anymore because it's all porn. I mean, even the stuff like the halftime show at the NFL. I told my neighbor wanted me to go watch the NFL. I said, I don't watch that stuff. And he's like, well, nobody else is watching. I said, of course they're not. Nobody wants to be part of a satanic ritual. And that's a problem. You want to watch a football game and you're getting all that obscene stuff. And so this is safe. Even, and it also, if you decide you want to argue against Islamic culture and politics, if you watch this soap opera, you will have an informed understanding. I'm amazed at how much I think they're really going after the concept of women not having any freedom. The love story of the bride who's forced to marry this guy. And what she does is she tells him, please don't make me perform my marital duties. And he agrees. And now the rest of the plot line, I know where it's going to go, because he's going to go share the office with Kemal-Adin, with whom she is madly in love. And she is obsessed with Kemal-Adin. She's going to find ways to see Kemal-Adin. And now this guy is her husband, who's not getting any. Because he said, I will release you. I will not force you to do anything. Because he truly loves her. But he has no clue that his boss, Kemal-Adin, is on the other side of that. I mean, I think he has a clue, because every so often you see, that's how good they are. It looks like he's not clueless, but every so often you see these little sideways glances as he looks at her and he looks at his boss. He doesn't dare speak up because, it's not a free society. But sooner or later, something's going to happen. Oh, and I skipped over the part where she shoots. Yeah, I did speak about it a little bit. Before the wedding, she went to the office. She went to Kemal-Adin's home. And she shot him. No, it was the office. It was in the palace. Yeah. Anyway, he was alone. So she went to see him. All crying because of not being able to, being ordered not to speak to him and so on. And she shot him and tried to shoot herself. And now a lot of the plot line is how they're keeping everyone else from finding out. They told a big lie that she was having a nervous breakdown because she was in love with this other soldier who died in the line of duty. And then they tell her husband they're keeping him ready to get married to her. And he's happy because he's going to be with her. He doesn't know. And they convince him that really she's grief-stricken and would he please go through with the wedding and perhaps he can heal her with his love. That's what that scene was about. He's promising to heal her with his love because he believes she's grief-stricken over this other soldier who died in the line of duty. But in the reality, he keeps glancing over at his boss. And, you can see the wheels turning in his head. And obviously he's going to find out that, no, she was never in love with the guy who died. But anyway, I'll leave you with that. Let me see who I have, if there's anyone else I have to ban. No. Okay, bye-bye. Denise Matteau, over and out.